Okay, call to order the March 11th, 2021 regular monthly meeting of the Nelson County School Board. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first thing, I need a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, second, under recognitions and presentations, we have Mr. Eric Robertson, here with Blue Ridge Home Builders Association. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for having me, especially on the first in-person meeting. I'll try to make it quick. My name is Eric Robertson. I'm a project manager for Smith & Robertson. We are a custom home building company in Albemarle County. I'm also a member of the Blue Ridge Home Builders Association. I'm on the board and on the Workforce Development Committee, which is what brings me here tonight, because the Workforce Development Committee has created a scholarship to help encourage and assist any students interested in pursuing a career. Calling it a scholarship is somewhat misleading because it's not just for college-bound students. It's for any student looking to gain knowledge and further their education towards the goal of being in a construction-related field. The application is available on the Blue Ridge website. I also gave Ryan, Dr. Y, some hard copies, and it's $1,000. We're awarding 6 of them this year. And the application process is pretty simple. It's an application form. A student would fill out who they are and then write a one page max essay about what their goals are, why they feel they are, should be receiving this funds and what their, construction related path inspires to be. The reason I'm here tonight is simply informing everybody that the scholarship does exist. We've struggled in years past about spreading the word. You guys are at the front line of education and our students, and we just hope that you guys spread the word and tell any student who may be interested in pursuing a construction-related path that there are a bunch of people in the community, a bunch of professions that exist, and just like any profession, the more educated you are in that topic, the more valuable you are in that career. And that's all we're trying to do is play a small part in that. So I'll keep it short like I was asked to. And if anybody has any questions or comments, please ask them now, or Ryan, Dr. Y, he has my contact information. But
So would this apply to students that were, I know a lot of times apprenticeships are covered by employers,
right,
many times, but sometimes they're not. Would it apply to apprenticeship?
exactly, yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Great.
Apprenticeship, trade school, educational classes, just a if someone wants to take a course that gives them a certificate, it's for that. It's for education.
Wonderful.
So this is not just for seniors?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. It's not just for seniors. And it's not even just for 18 and under. I mean,
Okay.
if they're serious about it, then we want to help.
And does it have to cover costs that are, I mean, like would the check go to the person who's applying?
The check would go to the school or wherever, I mean, honestly, we're not very specific about what you have to be applying to. We just want to help. But the idea is, yeah, the institution that they'd be using the money for the money would go to them.
I hope you get some diversity in your group of people
Agreed. I mean, that's
who apply and who also get the scholarship.
agreed. In multiple ways.
Yes, agreed. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have comments from board members. So start down on the end. Ms. Giles, would you like to go first?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chief. So I want to thank, first of all, start off by thanking Dr. Eagle for attending the Central Regional meeting. We had a great attendance. And we actually had a winner from middle school, second place, Kira Gilhart. Is that correct, Dr. Eagle? Who won the art contest. So excited about that. There are actually 9 Central Region meetings. I've already attended 3, the Central, the Southern Region, and the Eastern Region. And I'll be attending the others as well. I've also been a little busy with some advocacy work. There are a lot of educational bills out there. I'm sure you all are reading them. I've done some CBS 6 news stories out of Richmond, advocating for our students and trying to make sure that these bills go through correctly. I have spoken with the House of Education on a couple of those bills as well, so we're just waiting for word. The final comment is I've been appointed by the governor to participate in the Virginia Learns work group. You all will be hearing more about that. I see Dr. Eagle shaking her head. I know that she learned about that in the superintendent meeting. And that group is set up to hopefully help with the recovery of schools. So soon I'll have more information. We are now on our 3rd meeting. So look forward to sharing that information with you all. Thank you, Mr. Chief.
Thank you, Ms. Turner-Jones. Ms. Powell.
So we're on our 2nd week, I think, of hybrid with our young students, and it sounds like it's been a roller coaster, but a good one, moving in the right direction. And I overwhelmingly have heard from people that they're so glad to see the students back, whether it's the drivers, whether it's the teachers, whether it's the administrators. So for everyone, top to bottom, across the board, that is a part of us getting to this point and getting these kids in the building, thank you. There are probably not enough ways and words for us to express the gratitude, and the gratitude I know from the kids when they walked in the building to see you guys. So I think, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Perkins.
I echo what Ms. Powell said. That's about all I have.
Thank you. Ms. Claire?
I just wanted to give everybody an update on prep. We've been meeting like mad, mostly closed sessions, so I can't tell you too many details, but we're working out the budget, and I think we'll have one finalized to vote on next Thursday. So I don't know how that fits into ours, but I don't think it's any surprise, but we have gone down a lot. We've been able to cut a bunch of costs, and I know that was it's been over time, the prep, cost of prep has been, kind of ratcheting up, and we've done a lot of really soul-searching look at everything to try to bring that down, and I think we've come down quite a bit. Maybe $100,000 or something like that, and it's likely to be more than that in what hits our bottom line. So it is definitely different every year based on the number of students that we have and what kind of services that they need. But I think everybody in the whole, all the board and all the superintendents that participate in those meetings are definitely support the program, want to see it continue, but also wanted to see, you know, it continue in like making really smart, you know, decisions about how it gets run. So, and I've been really impressed with this interim director. She's really great. Her name is Margaret Matthews, and man, she's really good. So, anyway, that's all I had to say. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
I also would like to echo what Ms. Powell said. So glad to hear about the kids being in school. I'm sure it's not going to be perfect. It's not perfect when we go back to school under normal circumstances because it's a difficult job. But I'm sure the students are excited to be back and the teachers are excited to be back, to have them back. Really glad to hear Ms. Turner Giles has been appointed to this group. I think that's going to be really beneficial anytime we can get more insight and influence in the web of the state for all of these programs and how we're going to do that. I think it's going to be really beneficial, and congratulations on that. It's great.
Thank you, George.
So, and nothing really to report, but we have met, the CIP committee's met a couple of times. And just to say, I don't really have anything concrete to report other than we've had some good discussions and made good progress. We still have a lot of things to discuss. And we'll have more information coming.
George, who did we decide from here are members of that?
I'm from here. I'm sorry. That was myself and Ms. Perkins. Yeah.
Caesar, okay.
And I will tell you, one of the things that we are looking to do with that committee
Mhm.
is we want to establish some permanency with the committee. So we're working to establish terms for members from each board to be on, and we're talking about probably staggering those terms
Oh, good.
so that people aren't on and off at the exact same time.
Mhm.
And everyone on both boards has opportunities to be involved in capital. And so that we have a structure and that, you know, when we're all gone from our boards, that we have something lasting that's a working relationship.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
good. And can you share who the members are from the Board of Supervisors?
It's Mr. Parr and Mr. Rutherford.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just ask one more question, or maybe just bring it up amongst us? I got an email from maybe the legislative committee asking us if we had anything that we wanted to put out there for the VSBA to take and consider as one of their legislative things. So, you know, I'm kind of a newbie at all this stuff, or at least paying attention to it. And one of the things that I did this fall as being a delegate, as I got to vote on ideas that other school systems had that they brought to VSBA, and VSBA either fleshed out or whatever and brought back to the entire, you know, group, all of the delegates from all of the school boards. And I thought that was really cool. I mean, some of them were really small things, but they came from, you know, maybe the smallest places or something. A lot of them were from big places too. But I think one of the things that we haven't done in the past, I don't think, is look at those legislative suggestions every year and decide amongst ourselves, because the delegate is a representative that reflects even if they didn't agree with it themselves, they had to vote the way
That's
the
right.
majority voted, which I thought was interesting to hear. And then also, like I said, they could bring ideas that they had forward too. So I think we should probably, when we have some time in a meeting, you know, talk about some of the ideas. I know Shannon has a ton of ideas. So let's put them out there, you
Okay.
know?
And I'm glad you brought that up, Ms. Claire. I mean, that's the importance of attending the VSBA educational sessions. You learn a lot about what the other school districts are doing, and also have that opportunity to be one of those delegates and vote. So
Mhm.
thank you for bringing that up.
That's good stuff. Thank you. Okay. So next we have important dates. Daylight savings time starts tomorrow night, Sunday morning at 2 a.m. Set your clocks forward. Not tomorrow night, sorry, it's Thursday. Let me get my days straight. How about Saturday night, Sunday morning? March 15th, grades 9 through 12 open house, and we will have first through third and fourth through six. Four through six begins. Is that correct? It says six on here, sorry. 4 through 8. Oh, sorry, 1 to 3 and 4 to 6. Got you. Okay. Also on the 15th, grades 4 to 8 will begin hybrid learning. That's good. March 25th, VSBA Board Governors Workshop meeting for all of us. And March 29th, 9 to 12, begin hybrid learning. And then April 1st is our next regular meeting that we moved because of spring break. Okay. Is our student representative here this evening? No.
Have you heard from them, Ms. Pond?
Okay.
Lauren's got a volleyball game tonight.
Okay. Now we're at item 5, comments from a superintendent. Dr. Eagle.
Okay, and good evening. May I ask Dr. Y if he has a moment, Yarzabinski, to step up after the building person for a moment?
Apologize for not introducing Mr. Robertson. He just jumped right up and I didn't want to cut in front of him. But CTE is all about opportunity for our students. And a lot of times we just try and find new ways to provide that opportunity. Typically it's through programming. Sometimes it's through the credentials and certifications that we can get the students equipped with to prepare them for immediate employment after graduation. And a lot of other times it is through the relationships we build with community and regional business leaders, such as Mr. Robertson. So I'm excited to get to know him, get to reach out to him, and to get a preemptive and excited agreement for him to actually come and serve on our CTE advisory committee. And excited to see what other opportunities we can provide for our students, either via work-based learning opportunities, internships, and just the network of individuals that he knows. So I think he's a very important person to build a rapport and relationship with, and to leverage his expertise in the field and his knowledge of other stakeholders we can bring on board to further provide opportunities for our students. So thank you for hearing him today. And again, excited to get to work with him.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. Okay, good evening, everyone. Our halls are once again buzzing with the excitement of learning and children in our classrooms. PK through 3, first day, as Ms. Powell alluded to, and first few weeks have been filled with lots of emotions, most of them very positive. We have both students and staff who were nervous about this first day of school, and that was hard to wrap your brain around that, we're already in March and it was their first day. To be in that environment and how things would be, but all in all, everyone has had a great transition. Several students expressed their joy of being back in school, and the one young man that came up to me at the elementary school, all excited to tell me that he was excited to be there and he felt like it was his birthday. And so it was good to see him and just see the look in his eyes. Our cafeteria and transportation staff have done an amazing job as we have transitioned this first phase and prepare for the next phase. I know many are so apprehensive of how things will look as we add students into the next phases, but we will continue to adjust as needed and overcome the challenges we all face. I want to thank our custodians and our maintenance workers as they have remained diligent in supporting our schools and keeping us healthy. Also want to thank our administrative team and our support staff who have worked very hard to step up on the planning and the way to implement all the phases and events as planned. So I shared with you earlier this week a chart as we are tracking our open house information. I hope you found that informative. So as of this afternoon, we only have a few families of students who have not made contact with the schools to give their intention for the next start date, which is on Monday, for grades 4 through 8. But of course, we are working to contact them and make sure that we have all of that information. We've had great attendance for our open house events at all schools, and many families have utilized our online registration process to communicate their intent. So for our PK through 3 families at both elementary schools, 74% selected in person and 26% selected to remain virtual. For our grades 4 through 5 families at both elementary schools, 77% elected in person and 23% selected to remain virtual. And for grades 6 through 8, so far, 73% in person and 27 selected to remain virtual. So that gives us an average for grades PK through 8 of 75% and 25%, which is about where the last two surveys that we did, both in the summer, if you recall, and in the fall, and what we're seeing typical across other school divisions. So our next open house, as stated, is on Monday for grades 9 through 12. We're excited to see those students, and I will, of course, keep you updated and share that chart and information that following week. As we review the hybrid transition for our pre-K through 3 students, attendance has been strong for these first 2 weeks. We have had the average of 95% for those designated as in-person, and the highest day was 100% students attended that were supposed to be there. And then we have 92% as an average for our virtual students, but we also had the highest day, one of the highest days was 100% of everybody participating that day. So I am certain as everyone, the staff, the students, the families, as they all settle into a routine and figure out the schedule and all, the attendance rates per day will continue to stand strong. So very excited about that, and those are some of the informational pieces I wanted to touch with open house and our hybrid learning so far. Next, I want to touch on graduation planning. As we are looking this week, as of this week, graduation is considered a social gathering from the governor's office, and the restrictions on social gatherings are still 10 inside and 25 outside. So we've been told that the new guidance, we are hopeful, specific to high school graduations will be coming out from the governor and VDOE by early April. In planning for several different scenarios, though, of course, Dr. Sumner and his team have met with their graduation committee, and they are working on plans, and they'll continue to meet. They do plan to send out a survey, just like they did last year, to the senior families by the end of March to get their input as to what they would like it to look like. Some ideas that they're floating, of course, it would be a traditional ceremony, whether it's totally open, if we're allowed based on restrictions to have more people, or there may be limited tickets. But traditional ceremony out on the field as we have held it before. Another, depending on restrictions, could be just small groups walking out on the field, pre-taped speeches, and just having it small groups. Again, all this depends on restrictions. The racetrack option has been explored. Drive-in ceremony, just like that, but here on campus, is being talked about with a drive-through parade. And then a virtual ceremony where they would come through the auditorium in small groups. So lots of different things are being discussed. And again, the survey will help with the ideas from the seniors and their families. And of course, we will continue to keep you up to date and our families as we secure details, as we know about restrictions and what happens with those as we get closer to our May 28th date for our graduation.
Can we also, in the survey, ask them if they would prefer to have somebody other than a school board person give a speech? You know what I mean? Mix it up a little bit. Maybe they'd want somebody, from the community that's, I don't know how everybody else feels, but, it's an honor to be able to speak to the graduating class, but it's also very nerve-wracking and also it's just may not be as relevant as it could be. We could get somebody who, has a better connection with them. So anyway, it's a question.
Sure.
I'm sure George will be happy to do it again.
Well, and I think that some of it is a tradition for some different speakers, whether it's a superintendent, like you said, may not be as relevant to the group as somebody else would be. I think there are a few different ones that are usually just a tradition. I have asked before because I, as a principal, we had outside people come in and speak too. Most of them were graduates, successful graduates. We had a general from from one of the military branches came who had been a graduate of that high school. And so that was kind of neat. So I have asked about that in the past. And so that's a great question. So whether they have the traditional speakers on top of and in addition to, and if there are any ideas for that.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, thank you.
Love it. See what people come up with.
Three planning goals that I've talked to you about, just want to kind of give you an update on that I'm working on. The first is on the CIP planning. I'm working with Mr. Harvey with the architectural partners to create a report, and this report will be, I hope, a positive tool that will help the CIP committee as they are planning. And so the thought process is to set it up in a different structure than what we have now as far as what our projects are, and look more at a short-term and a long-term planning tool. He has experience, obviously, through architectural partners to develop that type of a quick reference, if you will, to look at. And an example would be, we just finished the tennis courts and the track in the last year. And so looking out 5, 10 years, 15 years, whatever it may be, what would be the timeline we need to plan for, or the committee needs to plan for, to resurface or to reseal. And if you don't do those little things, we all know that's when issues come down, are greater down the road. So we're going to work on that. The next goal is to continue our strategic planning development. You know that we halted that with the onset of the pandemic. Trying to work with a group, an organization to facilitate this process and create this living document. I'm really excited about it. So we're working on this to have the planning document, and we now have to bid out the service. So I will keep you posted as we go. That my intent initially was to have this started here in March, but we've been delayed a little bit based on that whole bidding process. So I'll keep you informed. And then finally, I'm working with the Virginia Association of School Superintendents and a retired superintendent to look at our organizational structure. We've talked about this, and to review the sufficiencies and efficiencies in relationship to what we do as an organization and our structure, and that compared to other school divisions around us and what they are doing. So as we move forward with these planning tools, I'll keep you posted as we move along with those. I'm excited about the March 25th board governance workshop. So this is our annual workshop, and I've shared the agenda with you. If you need for me to set up, it is virtual. If you need me to set up a workspace for this workshop, let me know. I know a couple of you all are interested, and we were going to set you up in the Alpha boardroom downstairs. Plenty of room to spread out and good internet connection, and just a good place to be able to sit for the day. So I will work with you all on that, but let me know. And then finally, VSBA Equity in Education Month. So in an effort to encourage equity in education, VSBA has designated the month of March as VSBA Equity in Education Month. And equity in education is a significant challenge nationwide. You'll find a proclamation attached to our agenda here from the governor. When inequity in education persists, there is a cost to all involved, including missed opportunities for economic development, greater dependence on government supports, and fewer Americans ready to serve and lead. So as a school division, it is important to recognize factors such as disability, race, ethnicity, gender, and/or socioeconomic status as historically impacting the educational opportunities provided for all students. So, as educators and champions for children, we must promise to provide opportunities so that every child finds success in the school and in life. We must be aware of the diverse needs of learners and encourage discussion of the challenges as a school community. We must recognize the inequities in resources, including educational settings, supplies, technology, buildings that may impede student learning. And we must all lead the way in assuring educational equity, best practices, and programming be discussed in Virginia schools, in our communities, and in our classrooms. And so I'm excited to I shared that with our monthly my monthly moments newsletter, and to have conversations. And I also know that 2 teachers shared with you an activity that they are doing with their students. And I had a chance real quick this afternoon to peek in on a couple of those podcasts, if you will, that they created, which was a neat way to pull those together. So if you get a chance, if you haven't seen that, check that out. That was from 8th grade. One was from an 8th grade teacher I know. And that's all I have.
Thank you.
You know, on that equity bit, I would love to know what we are doing in terms of extra learning for the teachers, or I know you guys do services and things like that on a regular basis, and whether you have things like implicit bias training or, you know, different trainings about, you know.
Equity,
Yeah.
diversity.
Yes, because I think it's important, especially when, you know, we don't necessarily have, you know, an equitable representation in our teaching staff, you know, compared to our student staff. So it's really important that they keep that kind of stuff fresh in their brains. Not that they're not, but, you know, just in case. There was this great show on, just on the regular Richmond thing, on this guy who went to a, oh God, I just sound so, like I can't think of a sentence. But anyway, we watched an equity training. It was just on regular TV, and it was just an hour long, but it was, and of course I read a lot about stuff like that, but my husband was pretty new to some of it, and he was telling everybody, oh my God, you should do this training. So, I mean, and it would be interesting to do some of that with people like us,
Mhm.
you know?
Yes,
Who don't necessarily think of doing it all
Right.
the time.
it's a good thought.
Yeah, Mr. Chief, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So, you had mentioned that you're working with the CIP planning and you're working with Mr. Harvey on that. How does that dovetail into the work that the CIP planning group that George and Caesar are on with the Board of Supervisors? Is
Well,
this
this-
one and the same?
Yes.
Okay,
So the CIP committee is not working with Mr. Harvey. We're doing it from the school division to create a tool. You know how we get our whole list and we try to prioritize and we put all that
Yes,
together
yes.
as far as what the needs are? Well, we've never had it in a format. I know Ms. Urban has wanted to get it to this format, but we've never had it in a format where you can look at 3 years from now, 5 years from now, and kind of track it, if you will, like that. So the tools being developed by the division for the use with the CIP committee, but it's the same projects. It's just giving a data point, if you will, to look at different things, 3 years down the road, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road.
okay. Thank you for that. I wanted to make sure that it was in conjunction
Oh,
with
yes.
what they're doing.
Most definitely.
And not something separate.
No.
My second question is, the last time we were here, we were talking about students that did not attend classes at all. And there were 8 at Rockfish, and I think 1 at the middle school and 1 at the high school. So my question is, those 8 at Rockfish, now that school has started, are they back?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes, and that has honestly, I bet you that's been the most joy that both the administrators and the teachers have felt, because they have seen a few, and it's good that it hasn't been many, but a few students that they had never seen. And some of them, it hadn't been because of the no contact from the families as much as it had been students that didn't have the internet and were working on packets. So they were communicating and just through that practice, but they'd never seen them and they'd never been able to interact with them. And the students were so excited.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful. That's what I wanted to hear, that those 8 are back, and certainly would love to hear that the 1 at the middle school and 1 at the high school return as well.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. My last question was in graduation, and thank you for your response to the question that I had had. You had said that early April, we should know more. So do we have a target date of when we're going to let parents know, or is that still just going to continue to be pushed until we know something from the governor?
No, yeah, and that's a good question, because I know families want to know. We want to do the survey, obviously,
Yeah,
as we're waiting, the restriction information and what they may do. We are hearing from good sources, from VDOE, who's in conversation with the governor's office, knowing, how much graduations, just that's a pressing event coming up.
Yeah.
That by early April, I don't want to say promise, but it's been indicated that that's when we're going to get information. So between
Okay.
the survey and hearing that, I would say by mid-April, we want to have a secure time, which would give a month and a few weeks for everybody to know. I will tell you, though, that the processes that typically take place in a high school are taking place as far as ordering graduation caps and gowns and ordering their announcements. Now, Jostens is who we work with, and they, through a lot of different schools, because many are in the same boat that we are, of course, they're not putting like dates, and they're making them real general to assist families who want to order through them. But some families have said, hey, we're going to go to a print shop because we want to get some specifics on it, So they've indicated, just, we know you're working out on it. Let us know by, mid-April, late April would be good. So that's our timeline, is to by mid-April to secure things.
Perfect. Yeah, and that just gives families an opportunity to plan.
Yes.
So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Dr. Eagle, will we stream, and I can't remember if we did it last year, but will we stream the ceremony no matter what, whether it's a traditional full-blown or whether it's a scaled-down small group?
Right, and so it is our plan. Right now, we've already secured the same group that did that for us last year, because we don't know. So it would be the indication that even if it's fully open to all community members, that we would still stream it.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Next is comments from the public. So just of note for people that want to address the board for in public comment, matters pertaining to personnel or individual student issues are not to be discussed in an open meeting. They need to be addressed in our closed session only. Please state your name and your address for the record. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. The total amount of public comments may be limited by the board. Individuals may not comment twice on the same item, and you always do better with this if you have your remarks prepared and you're addressing specific agenda items. So this evening, we have one speaker, Nadira Hayek. Is that correct? Hope I pronounced that correctly.
Short people. Good evening, everybody. Superintendent and board, thank you all for your service to our community. My name is Nadira Hike. I reside at 30 Edgehill Way, Faber, Virginia, obviously, unless we've been sent into another realm of existence, which this last year has felt like. So I came to talk to you today to introduce, well, maybe not introduce, perhaps some of you have looked at this, but to discuss some options for grading. And the thing I want to float is something that was introduced to me to the Fairfax school system, which is 50 being the new 0. Is ringing any bells? Anybody heard of this? Okay, I'll back up. So my daughter is a senior this year. She's actually been in the Nelson County schools since we moved here in 2010, so since 2nd grade. And yes, she is one of those who hopefully will get to have a graduation. She, as with many of her classmates, has really been struggling with virtual school. I'm sure that many teachers have been noticing that the grades, even with students who were previously very successful, are not so good. I was forwarded a report that was put together actually by the Fairfax School District, and I forwarded it on to Ms. Ponton this afternoon, and hopefully she can share it with the board members. It's a really excellent report in which they looked at the number of students who are getting 1 or 2 Fs and then also Ds and Fs in first quarter of 2021 versus, no, not 2021, versus, well, basically the first, 2021 versus the school year 1920. there was an average of 83% increase in students having one or more Fs. An 83% increase, and that's an average. In middle school, it was a 300% increase. In middle school, less so, a little less so, but again, that's a really remarkable average. And this was at the beginning of the school year, and I don't know about your students, but my student, beginning of the school year was actually her best. I mean, there was momentum, things were still going pretty well, and things kind of fell off, really despite best efforts. For a long time, I just thought it was our household. I was a bad mom, was letting my kid get away with too much, and then reports was coming in from everywhere. Friends who had honor students were just all of a sudden failing, just could not stay with it. Many friends are having a lot of difficulty. So, what Fairfax
I'm
School?
sorry, your 3 minutes has passed.
Oh dear. Can I just want to say what Fairfax School has done is implement a new rule for grading that 50 is the lowest grade that can be given. So basically 50 being the new 0 to essentially raise the floor in the grading system.
Okay, thank you very much.
So thank you, and I apologize that I rambled on so long, but I appreciate your time.
Okay, next we have the consent agenda. And on the consent agenda, we have meeting minutes, the second reading from January 14th, 2021. Meeting minutes, second reading, January 28th, 2021. The monthly financial reports, February 2021. And the registers from February 2021. Does anybody have any questions or comment about those? Okay, I'll need a motion to approve the consent agenda as a whole.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, items for information. We have the meeting minutes, first reading from February 2nd, 2021. That was a special call joint meeting with the Board of Supervisors. Meeting minutes, first reading from February 16th, 2021. And then next we have 2021-2022 Division Instructional Calendar discussion with Ms. Kim Douglas.
Good evening. The last time that I presented to you, I went over the highlights, the processes, and I presented two draft calendars to you with the parameters listed for those two draft calendars. Since we last met, I did present a survey to our staff that had the two draft calendars and had areas for input. It was not a vote for our staff, but it was rather an option for input where they could tell us about the things that they liked about the draft 1 calendar proposal and the draft 2 calendar proposal. I attached in your notes, you have the survey itself with the responses. We chose the top responses. So if we had more than 2 or 3 responses, we added those in this notes section to show what teachers were preferring or staff was preferring. When we looked at that, if you note the answer choices, we had a listing up for number 2 for draft 1, which is more traditional calendar that we've had in the past. They had the fact that they liked the start date and the end date of that calendar. They liked a more traditional calendar. They liked the work days and the way they were placed, and that the final exams and SOLs, the preference was to be before winter break. So that was the preference. Number 3, if you note there, it lists that they would like that quarter to end December 17th. They wanted to look at options for start dates, and then Booster Academy. They liked the idea of a Booster Academy. That was several responses that we received from the survey. The extra break time if possible, and then full 2 weeks for winter break. We took that information from that first draft response, and we took the calendar from draft 1 and we tweaked it to fit those needs from those responses. So if it was multiple responses leaning that direction, we took that draft 1 and we made a few changes to the draft 1 proposed calendar. For draft 2, they listed that they liked the Booster Academy, that they liked 2 full weeks for winter break. some responses were they liked a later start date, and then gave more time for more people to be vaccinated, was a couple of mentions in that particular draft 2 version. For draft 2 review, the common responses for changes were, again, that winter break being the end of semester 1, the first day of school sooner. They didn't like the later start date, and then adding instructional days before second semester, which is more in line with draft 1. The responses that we received overall were in line with draft 1's calendar, a more traditional format. And again, the last time I presented, I'd mentioned that surrounding divisions, the majority of those divisions had a similar format and that more traditional style. Number 6, asked information for remediation and enrichment programs and what those options would look like. Just a brief suggestion of what they preferred for the remediation enrichment, what would work best for our students for the instructional calendar. And it looked like when we looked at the survey that we had our first choice was actually providing after-school booster sessions 2 days a week for the first 8 weeks of school. And then second to that was the possibility of providing a 2-week booster academy. And you look at third, we had 45 responses that liked 1 week of a booster academy. When we looked at that overall information, with the first choice being those first 8 weeks of school with after-school options, we took draft 1 and we compromised and we added into draft 1 a 1 week boost academy, so 4 days. And then we also added 8 weeks of, if you note at the bottom of that draft 1 proposed calendar, is a notation that says the first 8 weeks of school that we would provide some additional remediation and enrichment. And our intent is to provide additional days after school for the students that attend that Boost Academy for that 1 week. They would continue with remediation and enrichment after school during that first quarter. The next steps, after proposing this calendar tonight, the draft that is attached for you to review, is to actually put a survey out for our teachers next that would give input for our summer learning program, which isn't relevant to this calendar, but starts that summer learning piece. And then we would get input for that Boost Academy to really tighten up what that looks like for our students.
Are you
Are they-
asking parents about that too?
We did not ask parents in the last 2 years because we wanted to make this just an instructional calendar. So we really put it out to our staff that were the experts on instruction. And that's why we kept it to the staff when we asked this question.
Yeah, I was asking about.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, for summer learning, we have discussed different options, but we could certainly put something out if needed for parents. That would
I
be.
just was curious.
And our main driving force in that would be for the instructional staff that are able to teach summer learning.
Right.
So before we can put something out to what we can offer, we have to see how many folks will be available to teach as that option. Any questions on the calendar proposal? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have the update on the county request with Ms. Shannon Irvin.
So, can you hear me? Is it working?
Yes.
You might want to remove your mask.
Yeah, that's probably a good
You
idea.
do better.
Yeah, so the county has decided to go a different route in terms of refinancing the middle school complex. And so they are working on a different agreement with the bank. And so at the next meeting, we'll be bringing yet a different resolution than what was in the packet. So we have taken that item off of the agenda. The other item is, again, bringing forth the idea of sharing the cost of the generator repair for Rockfish River Elementary School. The generator does serve the school and it operates all of the electrical components of the school, including the fire pump. The county has already authorized the repair of the items, so that's in the works. Just the decision needs to be made as to whether the school board would wish to share in the cost of that. We have prepared a draft letter for your consideration. explaining that due to the uniqueness of the 2021-20 school year, that there could be funds available, but it's not a item that is budgeted in our budget, and so it wouldn't be likely to be able to happen again. So this would be a one-time agreement to share in the maintenance. So that's for the board's consideration.
Okay, and just for further information, we did bring this up during our initial CIP committee meeting, just to touch on it, and we were assured that if this caused us any problems, towards the end of our budget cycle, that they would help us out with that. And everybody seemed to understand that it was a one-time consideration. You want to add anything?
Huh?
You want to add anything?
Nope.
Okay,
So do we need to make a motion or,
is that under?
It's item, yeah, it's item.
It's on the
Items for
action, yeah.
okay.
Okay. So we will, that was it on that, Ms. Irvin?
Excuse me?
That was it on that item?
That's
Okay. So we'll move on to personnel updates with Ms. Shannon Irvin.
Yes, in terms of our vaccine program, I believe that everyone that has wanted a first shot has been scheduled. We think that by the end of March, that we should be at about 85% or so fully vaccinated. Thankfully, again, the wonderful partnership that we've had with the Blue Ridge Health District and with the Blue Ridge Medical Center, we could not have done it without them. So again, we're very thankful for that. In terms of vacancies for next year, we are interviewing now for positions for the school year coming. There are some hard-to-fill positions that we're trying to get a jump on as soon as we can. We're looking at building trades, in particular, auto mechanics, technology, mathematics. All of those are really tough positions to fill. We have one instructional aid position that's available, and numerous bus and car routes that are available. So we are actively seeking applications for those. So please, if you know of folks that are interested in working, please have them apply. I guess that's about it at the moment.
Have you died?
Okay. Next is, capital improvement plan.
Yes. Tonight we have a guest speaker, and I hope that he has made it back. Gary Harvey from Architectural Partners will be joining us to talk about some of the projects that we have underway. But we're basically working with two different pots of money. The one pot is the $441,546 that the Board of Supervisors appropriated related to unspent monies from last fiscal year. So the board had authorized us to begin work on the greenhouse, thankfully. Gary is here to talk a little bit about that, I think. We'll also be looking at the bollards that we want to place in front of our elementary schools and the middle school. And then in our security grant, we had security vestibules at both the middle school and the high school written in the grant, which was funded, and so they're working on that for us as well. One project that he is not working on that we've gotten prices on is the set hoist for the stage area. It has been cooperatively procured, and therefore it's on a state contract, and it is right at our $50,000 budget that we had set aside for that. So with the school board's permission, we'd like to go ahead and move along with that project as well. But Gary, you're on stage. So you can-
Question real quick. Are you guys recording online?
Yes.
Okay.
We're
I
streaming.
will go to the podium. I was going to suggest that maybe I could go to the center to show you, be able to show you the boards, but
I was gonna
Can I
say, you
move
could
this
do that
to
if
you?
we brought you a mic.
Can I move?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Will that work for you guys? That might make it a little bit easier for you guys to see, if that's okay.
We're old and done. Told you I could be Vanna.
We spent a lot of time together.
All righty, good evening. First off, I'd like to say thank you for your service. I happen to know serving on a school board is a difficult job that takes a lot more time than most people think. So I want to say thank you for your service. Tonight, I'm prepared to talk to you about many of the projects that we are currently working on and answer any questions that you might have. I'll try to walk you through some of the projects that are about to come out with the drawings for the security entrance. And also I can talk to you about the greenhouse project, which is sort of just starting underway. So let me start off with the greenhouse project. We received the signed contract, so we're moving ahead. First item on our agenda was to get environmental testing. We were suspect that the glazing in the glass at the greenhouse might have environmental issues that needed to be contained and abated. We are waiting on getting the final lab results back on that. But once we receive those results, we'll pass that along to you guys, because that will then determine a little bit of some of the work that will need to take place. For instance, if there is suspect material in the glazing, then what will happen is all of that material will need to be abated. So there will be a contractor who will come out and dismantle the greenhouse components, package it appropriately, and dispose of it appropriately before the general contractor comes on site. Now, if there are no suspect items in the glazing, then the general contractor can have a regular demolition contractor take the greenhouse down, and that will go a little bit faster because they don't have to be quite as careful and worrying about generating dust and airborne issues. So in our initial study, we looked at several options with the greenhouse. One was removing the glazing and replacing the glazing, leaving the existing superstructure in place, and replacing all of the machinery and control systems for the greenhouse. I come to find out that option was actually more expensive than simply replacing the whole greenhouse as a component, because most greenhouses are done that way. So we brought in a special consultant that we've worked with before, most recently on Sweetbriar College's greenhouse, and they've been involved on our team as we're moving forward with the design. The plan is to keep and maintain as much of the existing raised brick wall that's there, but pretty much from there up, everything gets removed, all of the controls, et cetera. We will be tying in all the utilities back to the main building. We will also be installing a new greenhouse superstructure, new glazed panels, brand new controls, et cetera. So it'll, in essence, be a brand new greenhouse. I have a board that does have a few photos of the current existing greenhouse. And one of them that I'll really point out to you, or three of them, I should say, are these down here. These are basically the machine part of the greenhouse. And this is where a lot of the failure has actually happened, because these dampers and the control systems don't properly work anymore. That has caused a long-term problem where you might have the louvers open, and it might be a cold night, and suddenly all the plants get damaged. So of course that doesn't work very well with a greenhouse. So a lot of that is going to be replaced with all new machinery and elements to the greenhouse structure. So do you guys have any questions that I could answer for you about the greenhouse and the process that we'll go through with the greenhouse?
Is there any testing done on the foundation?
Any testing done on the foundations? We did a preliminary examination on the foundations. There are, in our proposal, one of the things we'll do is be replacing the slab floor, the gravel on the slab floor, but the brick walls and the foundations themselves seem to be in good order. There might be some repointing that we'll do on some of the brick and maybe some cleaning, but nothing major was observed.
Okay, great.
Any other questions that you guys might have?
Is there any, and I don't know if this is going to be for Ms. Irvin or for you, but is there any money in this? I'm not sure what time frame we're looking at doing this. I would assume over the summer that we would do this, but is there anything in the budget, if necessary, to be able to do?
Like a portable type breathe-out that we would plan to do. Yeah, I'm gonna let you answer is there extra money somewhere? Right. Okay. And just to let you know, sort of the timeline, we'll be finishing up documents late spring, and we're finalizing the schedule to get to you guys. And again, we're sort of waiting on to find out whether or not we have suspect material, because that does impact the overall schedule. But the target date for actually to start is at the end of April, first part of May, hopefully about the time you guys are out of school. We'll get the contractor on board, hopefully award the contract. They'll then be able to start ordering supplies, so they'll be able to be working, but not necessarily working on the greenhouse project yet. Until you guys are wrapped up with school, everything can be removed that you want to keep, and then at that point, the demolition guys will come in and start taking it down. So right now, we're anticipating that project will probably last until November, just because we're getting a later start into the summer. So I know that it does impact the start of school in that time period. We believe that substantially complete will actually be in October, but final completion and sort of move-in will most likely be the first part of November. So whether or not, based on your class schedule, if you decide to do that sort of after the holiday breaks, or however, we'll coordinate that with you as well. And as we get closer to the time for start, our team will start coordinating more with your teachers and folks at the school as to when we can have total access to the greenhouse, because that will be part of the information package that we share with the bidding contract.
If you find materials, you spoke of abatement, if you find materials that you're going to have to go through that process, what kind of a delay will that put on the end of the project? Are we looking into December, into the first?
No, ma'am. We're hedging our bets that we will find suspect material. So we've already, that November date is assuming that
Counts for that.
So I would rather give you the worst case scenario, and hopefully we'll be finished sooner than give you a short time period that then gets extended. Now, the other piece of that does come into play is the ordering of the greenhouse itself. So we've allowed 8 weeks for that. And the reason why I just bring that up is we have seen some delays with some materials in construction. We're still suffering from COVID delays that happened over the summer and the fall. Hopefully we'll quickly turn the corner on that, but those delays have impacted supplies and also have impacted costs. So that's why in some of the documents that we submitted, we recommended that we accounted for inflation, but we also recommended that you have a contingency for your budget just to allow for the potential of being cost impacts due to COVID.
So you said you were tearing out the existing floor and redoing the whole floor system?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Because there'll be some
Right.
utilities that are in that as well.
okay.
Any other questions about the greenhouse? All right. Let's see here. So next, I'd like to talk to you about the security project. And then from the security project, I've kind of moved into the bollards discussions. So we were contacted and asked to take a look at the entry procedures that you currently have. I'm going to show you some photos just to kind of help remind you. I'm sure you guys are all very familiar with these locations, but I'll try to update you on the drawings and the processes that we're proposing. But this is the high school. This is the current main entrance. So right now, this is the door that the students use when they arrive in the morning. Then all of the doors to the school are secured. And then people arriving throughout the day are also buzzed in through these same doors. So as soon as they come through that set of doors, they're sort of in the main hall. There really isn't necessarily a control point there. Similar situation at the middle school. Once you arrive in the main doors, you're in a central lobby. Just to kind of help you get your bearings. As you come through, there's the library and also the main office. And there's a hallway that leads toward this area to the cafeteria and auditorium. And there's a hallway that leads in the other direction to the middle school itself. So as soon as someone is buzzed in through that main set of doors, once again, they are within your corridors, your circulation, where students can also be. So what we did, and I'll review the high school first because I think that's probably the easiest scenario for us to share and follow. Currently, you have an SRO office right here. Next to that is your attendance office. So what we are proposing is that we would take this window here, open it up into a doorway. So these main doors would be used by the students when they arrive in the morning, and then they would go into lockdown. After any other visitors, whether it's the school, the UPS driver, or any other visitor, would then come to this secondary personnel door. And that doorway will lead them into what is currently the SRO officer's office, but that will then become a secure entrance. So when, let's say if I arrive at say 10 o'clock, I might be bringing my son or daughter's lunch to them, or I might be here to visit with Dr. Eagle, or for whatever reason I'm arriving at the school, I would buzz in on a video card reader. Someone at the desk would then buzz me into this door, so I would then be in a secure lock. This door would also be locked. It would give someone the opportunity to gain additional observation of that individual if they needed to verify them from other than just seeing their face. And so this door we would propose would be a full light glass. Once they identify that person, have eyes on them, then this person would release this door latch, and then they would be in the office. So at that point, they're in a contained area. There is personnel there to assist them, and if they need to go further into the building, they can either then be, if you know who they are, you can let them go, or if they need to be escorted, they can. But what this scenario does is that instead of someone being able to simply come into the building and have free reign in the building, they're brought into a contained area which they can then be supervised. And that's the key. I want to say, shout out to one of your teachers here this evening. Was over at Ty River. I'm a stranger walking around with a camera, taking shots of your school. She came out, noticed me as being a stranger, and came up and asked me what I was doing there. That's the best security that you can have. So I just want to say hats off to her for doing that. So again, having eyes on live people with eyes on people that are in your school so that everyone is escorted is what we're trying to get accomplished here. Okay, we are still looking at some options within this area here, because what is taking place in what is currently the attendance office is going to be the SRO officer's office. And what we want to do is we want to keep them there. We're going to add an additional observation window here. So at that location, they will still have observation down the hallway and through the doors and through all this glass, so they have observation from this key point still of this whole area, which is sort of your linchpin of your high school circulation. Okay? So, but we are looking at this area because we're looking to locate the attendance secretary out here as being a second means of support to the main office secretary. Okay? Any questions about that?
The glass in that entryway is bulletproof, correct?
Just
No,
film.
ma'am.
It'd be
It's
film.
We could do that if you wish. And then the question becomes, what are you trying to stop? Because the level of ballistics exponentially goes up in cost depending on what you're trying to stop. Most securities are really designed to be more of a delay.
Okay.
I know your concern is sort of the active shooter. Our experience has been that's really hard to prohibit because they could come here, anywhere along other areas of the school where there's just regular glass, unless you're going to put ballistic glass throughout the entire school. So that would be something for discussion if that's something you wish to consider.
But as a reminder too, through the other security grants and at the high school, other schools, we've put up that film.
Yeah.
So the delay and the deterrence is, as he said, it's a timing of delaying as much as you can until the further assistance can get there.
At default to the police officer.
And that would be your SRO officer. He or she would be the first point of contact. Any questions about how the high school would operate? Okay, so now let me talk to you about the middle school. The middle school, once you come in, currently you would ring a buzzer. Someone in the office would then release this door. You would come into the lobby. And again, at that point, you have full access to the media center. You have full access to the middle school. And you have full access to the rest of the school. All right? With this being a major circulation hub, you have no secondary means of circulation anywhere else to get students from the middle school into the auditorium. We need to maintain this piece of circulation across it. So what we have proposed, and we've worked with our security consultants on this, is when you arrive, all right, students arrive in the morning, these doors are unlocked. They are able to move throughout the school. These doors here would always be operable in the egress direction. Same here, also from the media center and the office and these front doors. So in other words, in an emergency, when you need to get out, you hit the crash bar and you go out, even when the doors are in lockdown, okay? So these doors would be, after students arrive, we would go into lockdown. There'd be a locked set of doors here and a locked set of doors here. If someone were to arrive to be buzzed in, the people in the main office here would first buzz them into the vestibule. These doors here would be locked. They could not go any further until this person has eyes on the person in the vestibule, can confirm that they need to be brought in. They would also make sure that there are no students or staff in the lobby. If they have cleared the lobby, they would then hit the button to release these doors. When these doors are in release mode, this door, and the media center would lock down. So the only place that they could go would be into the main office, which is where we want to get them. And at that point, once someone is buzzing them in, at that point, they should be very much aware of the situation in the area. There's students in there, et cetera. So let me give you a scenario. UPS driver arrives. He goes to get buzzed in, and he's in here. And the person in the office knows the bell's about to ring, and we're suddenly going to have students circulating through there. So they can hold that person in this area while students move through, and once they're cleared, then they can release this door and therefore then lock these doors down. Okay? So the biggest change that you guys will experience is we will add a set of doors here where there currently are no doors leading into the middle school. We will replace this set of doors here that lead to the auditorium and the dining hall. We will add some additional hardware here. You will no longer be able to prop open the media center doors, which should actually be closed anyway for fire reasons. But those doors will be in a closed mode so that when the button is pushed, they can go into lockdown. So in other words, if they were propped open, it would kind of defeat the whole purpose of being able to lock them down. All right? Any questions about the processes that we're looking at to get people into the building and bring people in safely? Again, what you're really trying to do with security measures is to ensure that no one is in the building that either is not supposed to be there in the first place, or they have some type of escort, or people are aware that they're in the building. That's because, again, that's the best security.
And to limit their access.
Limit
Because
their
in
access.
both areas right now, it's a full access once they get past that initial point.
Yeah, once they're, and sometimes, and this is always something, I mean, there've been times where I go into schools and I hit the little buzzer and the doorbell rings and they never even ask me who I am. And they buzz the door through. That's going to be a training thing that you're going to have to work with staff, that don't release these doors until that person has stated who they are and what's their purpose for being here. So that has to be, again, personnel driven. Okay?
So the holdup area, what type of ventilation is in there? Will be,
What type of ventilation?
yes, like
You really
air
wouldn't-
circulation. I mean, if you're holding somebody there until the kids get out of the hallway and all this stuff, you have to kind of think about, is it going to be hot? Is it going to be cold? How long is this person going to be there?
Yeah, all of these doors are, well, this one especially because you already have HVAC that is going into there. And I believe you already have that into this vestibule here. It's through the ceiling here.
Okay.
So you already have heating and ventilation that are in there that are sort of tempering those spaces.
Okay.
So it shouldn't be, exceedingly hot or exceedingly cold in there. And really, these holding areas are kind of designed so if someone's arriving, let's say February, it's 10 degrees outside, we can go ahead and let them in, because probably 99.9 times the person has a legitimate reason to be here. Whether it's a parent, whether it's somebody visiting a staff member in the school, or whatever, that person has a legitimate reason to be here. We just need to take the time to find out what that legitimate reason is and authorize them. Okay? A point that I'm going to bring up, because that's going to segue into the next discussion, is the discussion of bollards. And does everybody understand when I use the term bollard? We're basically talking about some device. Most of the time, it's typically a pole that's set in concrete. And what it does is it helps to deflect or deter vehicles from getting too close to a building. A lot of times you'll see bollards, especially in industrial uses, they're designed to keep tractor trailers and forklift trucks and so forth from running into the wall. But a security bollard has a little bit of a different purpose. We're trying to create a barrier for vehicular traffic getting too close to the school. So one of the things that I believe your SRO officer looked at is some concerns that he had with vehicular access directly to the school. If someone either accidentally or intentionally meant harm with the use of a motor vehicle. So what we looked at was ways that we can provide additional security through bollards. And I'm a firm believer that the best security is the security that no one really realizes is even there, okay? And typically your post bollard is something that everybody kind of recognizes. But what we're proposing, and I'll show you some examples here, are benches, bench bollards, what we refer to as bench bollards. The benefit of them is they are much more structurally stable because you tie bollards together. So if someone were to hit the initial bollard, you have the secondary bollard that also acts for additional support. Also, they're useful. Students can come off the bus, sit down on the bench, sit at the bench, wait for their parents to pick them up, whatever else. So it also helps to beautify the school. So instead of just simply having bollards out there for protection, we can utilize them and have a secondary use for them, for a bench, a nice bench that you can sit down on. So what we would propose at the high school, the natural topography and some of the landscaping and just the vehicular circulation are already deterrents. Someone could, in theory, come straight down the main entrance. They have to be a pretty good driver, but it is possible. So what we would recommend is installing at least one bollard bench. And what that would be is you would have a bench that would be sort of back to back, and you would have the two bollards here. And again, if you think of a vehicle hitting here, they hit this first bollard, the rest of the bench helps to transfer some of that load into the second bollard. So both of the bollards are working to stop the vehicle, okay? So that's what we would propose at the high school, and that one's pretty straightforward. At the middle school, we have a much bigger concern. As you probably, and I apologize, I do not have a photograph with me here of the middle school, but this whole area is a glassed area. It's completely open. There is a drop-off lane here. There's some parking that's here. So in theory, someone could get up some speed and take a run at the building. So what we are trying to do is place some additional bollards, and right now these are just symbolically shown. We're going to analyze some of the different traffic patterns or potential traffic patterns so we make sure that we maximize their usefulness in stopping someone or deterring someone from doing this. Another aspect that we'll probably recommend to you is additional tree planting and some other things. We want to be careful that we don't provide additional screening that prohibits observation, but believe it or not, trees are great bollards. You've probably seen on the side of the road when a car hits a tree, usually the tree wins. So trees are pretty good bollard, and you have some of those currently at the high school, so they operate very well there. But we're looking at providing some bench bollards there. Now, I do not have any drawings of the two elementary schools, but we're working on locating bollards, safety bollards along the elementary school at both elementary schools as well. So I wanted to give you some examples to show you, this is probably the type of bollard that you're more used to seeing in most industrial uses. But bollards can be attractive. This is one that is a plastic cover where they actually drop the cover over top of the steel bollard. And a bollard is typically a steel pipe that goes into the ground several feet in concrete. It's filled with concrete as well. But we can provide different colored options. So you could use either school colors, or you could use a multitude of colors, a multitude of primary colors at the elementary schools for some of the bollards. This is an example of how they would actually line sort of like a sidewalk area. Now, I believe we're going to be having to utilize the pole bollards at both of the elementary schools, specifically near the auditorium cafeteria buildings, because of their close proximity to the drive lanes. We might be able to get some benches in as you get a little bit closer to the main entry where it opens up a little bit more, but the corner of those buildings is very close to the drive lanes. So what we'll probably recommend, I'll try to describe it to you, but you have your asphalt lane, you have a curb, and then most of your sidewalks have an ornate piece of concrete where basically they have tooled a piece of concrete about 12 to 18 inches wide, and then you have the rest of the sidewalk. We're going to recommend that 18-inch band that goes around the edge to be completely removed. The bollards then installed, and then we'll go back and either pour just plain concrete, or maybe even an exposed aggregate, or even a paver in there. So it will help pedestrians also delineate where the sidewalk is, and hey, kind of a warning for getting closer to the curb and the roadway. Simply because if the bollards were installed before all of your sidewalks were put in, you could just, pour the concrete directly around it. But since we're going back and sort of retrofitting an installation, we've got to be able to make the hole big enough to put the bollard in the hole and pour the concrete in. And so if we were to cut the hole in your sidewalk, you would have a bollard, a big hole every 5 or 6 feet. And the cost of doing that would be more than just removing the junk and installing the bollard. But what I also wanted to show you is these are what we refer to as bollard benches. So as you can see, this is a dual bench, a back-to-back bench. These are the center or single bollard posts, and the benches can be mounted on both sides of them. So therefore, they act as a security measure. And what I was talking about earlier was if a vehicle were to hit it, they would hit this part of the bench helps to carry the load to the secondary bollard, so they both work together. This is another example. You might have probably seen this type of bollard maybe at a gas station at the end of an aisle. But we can beautify that so it doesn't look, quite so industrial, and actually make a nice bench on it. And in this example here is a vinyl coated steel bench that's already readily available. You can also do a single-sided bench as well. Now, if we really wanted to get pretty ornate, the only reason I'm showing this photograph is just so you can see how security can be implemented, but most people wouldn't even realize that it is security. And that's this photo right here. This would be a little bit less cost effective for us because it's a stainless steel bollard system. And it has a lot of natural wood for the benches. Might be a little bit more pricey than the option. I think we're probably going to be more these two options here, and maybe even this option here. So we will apply those bollards at all of the schools, and that will be part of the security package.
Maybe we could do the target balls.
I'm sorry.
I said maybe we could do something like the target balls, in the front of Target, the balls.
Oh, yes, absolutely. You could do everything from, heavy concrete planters. There are many options. One option that we, as I was visiting both of the schools that I wanted to look at, specifically at Rockfish, you've got a long stretch of the school. There'd be quite a lot of bollards there. But as I mentioned earlier, you can look at using natural features to help with deterrence. So simply a raised landscape berm, or even a dry stack retaining wall that's backfilled and some planting there, put in there. So if you could almost imagine at the front of the school, maybe a dry stack retaining wall that might be 4 to 5 feet tall with some planting, low planting in it, and then maybe the school signage right there on that wall, or maybe some logos or something, or maybe some artwork on there. So it could be beautified, and it then acts as a continuous bollard to stop anyone from heading to the school. But yes, you are correct. Bollards come, again, I'm glad that you were able to recognize that is a security feature. It's not just their Target logo sitting out there. Any other questions that you have for me? Apologize, I feel like I'm talking a lot, but. All right, any other items that we need to cover?
Yeah, I think that's all.
Thank you.
All right.
We appreciate your time. We
Thank
really
you.
do.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I think just with that, finished up the section also, Ms. Irvin was just making sure that you all were good with us to go with the auditorium hoist. That was one of the things that was on that first chart, if you recall, which was part of the appropriation. Okay.
Makes sense.
That's not something we need to vote on.
No.
Yes.
All right, next we have item G, which is work session and final review for 2021, 2022, school division operating budget capital improvement plan.
Okay, to get started with this, just want to review a few points, if you don't mind, and then we'll take, whatever discussion that you would like to have, or any questions that you may have for us. So a lot has happened since our February board meeting. As an overview, we presented a budget to you initially just based on the governor's introduced budget, as you'd call. Unfortunately, we did not have a House or a Senate update early enough in February, and therefore no new information to share. So that's why we canceled our February work session. But by the end of February, we shared with you an updated budget synopsis that compared the House and Senate proposed budgets. And then finally, on February 27th, the General Assembly adopted a budget to send to the governor, and each school division received our calculations from the Department of Education. So in addition to waiting on the General Assembly final numbers, we confirmed our health insurance rate had decreased, which we were very excited to find out. And so that's been some great news for the FY22 budget. So as a reminder, we're basing our budget on an enrollment of 1507. And that's, you can see that from some of the documents you have there at the top. If you look at the top of like the synopsis, you'll see that. And as we have developed this budget, it's just as a reminder to you, it is simply a plan. There are many variables that impact it as we continue through the spring and even into next year. Most of the variables are out of our control. An example, a simple example, is the status of lottery ticket sales. Depending on if they go up or they go down, would impact school divisions' budgets. So some highlights from the General Assembly budget that you just received this week, and you have copies there in front of you. Funding provided for the state share of a 5% salary increase over the biennium, but do remember that those are for SOQ funded positions. So it is expected from the state then for local money to take the additional side. But we also saw increased sales tax. So that was exciting news. Part of the copies, some of the copies you have in front of you would be the budget synopsis, and that outlines, has the two columns, expenditures on one side and revenue on the other, and we've outlined the General Assembly recommended budget there. You also have a budget summary where we have detailed anticipated revenues and then some decreases. One of them, again, being our health insurance, and then gives a total shortage there at the end. If you recall, back in January, we were presenting just initially, we were around $800,000, and we've gotten that down to $206,800. You also received the Anthem plan and the employee rates that were proposed for next year. Again, great news that all of that has been decreased. So at this time, I'm presenting to you a budget that has a revenue deficit of only $206,800. If you were to approve the budget as presented, we are requesting $15,636,687 of local funding from the Board of Supervisors, which, as part of information I've shared with you, is a 1% decrease from what we requested last year for our operating budget. In addition, we're requesting the annual amount for our school nurses of $164,935. And then we are also requesting, as you know, our textbook and our cafeteria fund, they roll over each year and they're separate funds from the operating budget. So we're also asking for the transfer of funds for our textbook and cafeteria funds. There is no action needed at this time for our capital improvement project plan, as we would like to defer our request for any funds until the joint CIP committee has recommendations for the upcoming year. So that's just kind of an overview and information of what you've received, where we've been since February, and what you have in front of you this evening. But at this time, we will answer any questions you may have, or this is just a time for you all to have your discussion.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman, do we have to like open the work session or whatever it is? Do we have to do that separate?
I don't believe so. I think we do that rather than.
What was the question?
We don't have to
Do we have
we don't
to
have
open
to
a work
open a
session
work
for the
session.
budget?
It's
No.
just part, okay, all
No.
right, okay. It's a public hearing, I'm thinking.
Public hearing already has been held, yes.
All right, thank you, sorry.
And I apologize, but my mic is dead. So
Do you want mine?
You can have mine if you
I
want.
want.
Everybody's ready to
I'm
give it up.
I'm so loud, you know, I mean, I don't even need a mic.
I'm trying to.
I have to say, I don't have any questions. I think you guys have done an awesome job. I'm super happy.
The 206 is not inclusive, like you said, of the nursing program, but there is a history of us not including that nursing number within the budget we present, correct?
Yes, it has been for many years as an additional line item. It's been supported from the county, yes.
Perfect.
I would second what Mrs. Claire said, that I'm impressed with what you've been able to do with the budget, and I don't, at this point, have any questions.
Anyone else? Well, I'm pleased that you were able to get down to 206. You know, I'm always looking forward to get down to even with that year. But I think that was really good work to be able to get down that far. Okay, that's the quickest work session in history.
Yeah,
If that's the case.
I like it.
No comment?
no, I like it. I mean, I think we got it to where we need that.
Okay.
It's a working document too.
Okay, well, if that's the case, then thank you very much. We will move on to items for action. The first is we need to approve the 2021-2022 division instructional calendar. Is there any discussion on that before we have a motion? If there's no discussion, we'll need a motion from the floor to approve.
I make a motion we approve the divisional calendar.
I'll second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Item B, action for the county request on the generator transfer switch. Unless there's any further discussion on that, I'll need a motion from the board to approve that request.
I move that we approve the request for the Rockfish River Elementary School generator from the county.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carried. And finally, the 2021-2022 school board's recommended operational budgets. And I'm pretty sure that the motion is going to need to have the dollar amount in it, is that correct?
It is not, it does not.
Okay.
Yeah, unlike the one that we finally adopt in May, that will have that as presented, yes.
So unless there's further discussion, I'll need a motion from the floor to approve the budget, the proposed budget.
I move that we approve the superintendent's proposed budget for the 2021-2022 school year.
And I'll second it.
A motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Next. Okay, so we do have need to go into closed session. Give me just a moment, let me find my statement.
Is it that little purple tag?
That's why it's okay, pursuant to section 2.2-3711A of the Code of Virginia, I move that the board convene a closed meeting for the purpose of discussing the following specific matters. A1, the discussion of personnel matters to include new hires, retirements and resignations as authorized by section 2.2-3711A1. And/or A2, the discussion of student matters to include discipline issues as authorized by section 2.2-3711A2. And/or A.8, the compensation of legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel. Could I get a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
And close session.
Can I get a second? Can I get a woo?